call today, obviously. We're going to be going through our processes of submitting timesheets and kind of looking at what all it takes to get payroll processed for our employees. Now, yours truly, Christian Contreras. I'm here located in San Antonio at our IT, and have been doing these webinars with you over the last couple of weeks. And as we go through today's process, I've got a format that I'll go through here on the slideshow. But I'm also going to do a live demo in Blueforce. So kind of if you want to work along, you're more than welcome to, or you can just follow along these slides as I go through them. Now, what I will be doing is providing this presentation along with a PDF document that you can see down at the bottom right-hand corner of your control panel, in which you can actually see a document called Submitting Your Timesheets. And I'll bring that up here momentarily on the screen so we can go through that as well. But those are documents, two documents that will be provided after our conclusion of our today's session and tomorrow's session as well. Now, as we go through here, one of the things to keep in mind is, as we do with all of our sessions, is all of our sessions are muted, where all attendees can only listen to me. So I do ask that if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the GoToWebinar question area of the control panel, and I'll address them and incorporate them into our conversations today. Now, some of our topics that we'll go through will revolve around these on the screen. We're going to go through and focus really essentially what we refer to here at corporate as the field process of submitting payroll. So we're going to be focusing about the roles of submitting and approving. We're going to go through using timesheets, filters to manage review, and that's one of the things I think everyone will benefit from that discussion, because I don't think everyone is really accustomed to using timesheets just yet to their benefits. I'm going to talk about the different filters or views that you can do to help you with the process. We're going to go through and show you how to submit by the individual job or in mass. And then we're going to actually go in there and allow you to reopen a timesheet once it's been submitted. Now, that's one of the questions that's come up a lot today, and that once you submit a timesheet, you're essentially signing off on that payroll or that pay period, and you're locking the timesheet. So when I say locking the timesheet, you're making it not able to have any time added to it. So one of the things I'll show you is how to go in and reopen that and what the secret is to doing that. And then there's a couple of other things about changing non-worked hours. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to show you from the timesheet view how to go in there and add time that is for non-worked hours. Now, especially this week, we have a holiday coming up. Many of you may want to add holiday pay. So I'm going to show you how to add non-worked hours, meaning hours that are earned or deemed to an employee, but not necessarily worked. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of showing you the export summary and export details. And if time permits, I'm going to show you this payroll register reports in the system that if I don't cover today, we'll cover that at the beginning of next week when we actually start processing our payroll. That's when that really comes into play anyhow. So there's a lot to cover. I hope we cover everything within the hour. If something towards the end there gets missed that we don't have time to cover in this call, we are going to cover it on our trainings we'll offer at the beginning of next week as well. And that email I'll send out probably later today or tomorrow, just letting you know about our upcoming training sessions or webinars. Alrighty, so let's go on through. So the first thing I want to talk about is a timesheet. And before I go too much further, down at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, like I said, you have your control panel, and all of you should have a document that you can click on. It's called Submitting Your Timesheets. It kind of goes through the process that you would do to submit your timesheets. Now, many of you on this phone call have done an excellent job already today of submitting your timesheets. For being your first time through, it's actually done it on your own, so pat yourselves on the back. For those that haven't done it yet, no worries. After we go through our session today, you will be able to see that you've got a lot of options in this document. But more importantly, I'm going to show you some cool things here on the screen on the demo of how to go through and submit that timesheet. So real quick, let's go back to our slideshow here. So the first thing, the timesheet. One of the first things I want to mention for everyone is And I kind of mentioned on last week's sessions, but the key thing is to keep in mind the difference between your time cards and timesheets. So before I go any further here, let me back out of here and let me go back to my Blueforce window. I'm going to log in here to Blueforce, and I want to explain two key things about the Blueforce as a refresher for some. So you may have already heard this. But when I go into Blueforce, a couple of things that you want to pay close attention to is your time card screen here in the middle, and then right next to it you have timesheets. All right, so those two that I've circled, time cards, which is the first one that we want to point out here as we get into this session. Time cards is where you would actually see the employee's raw punches. What I mean by that is when the employee actually goes to the clock, goes to the phone system, goes into web punch, goes into mobile punch. Whenever they come to the time cards, they're going to clock in and they're going to clock out, and that time is going to be recorded in time cards. Okay. Once they're done, that time, and actually once the system records a valid in and out match, an in and out punch, the system will send that time over to timesheets. And timesheets is where we're going to spend all our conversation today, but timesheets is where you can actually go and see the employee's total time for the hours worked on, let's say, yesterday. Or you can also see that time of lunch is taken out. You can go in there and see basically a preview of what the employee is expected to get paid come payday. So timesheets is where you actually see the actual time to be paid to the employee. So I'm going to keep those two separate. Time cards is for worked hours. Timesheets is where you're actually going to put your non-worked hours. We'll talk about that a little later. But time cards is where you would go in and kind of where you're at now of reviewing time daily. That's where you're going and doing it in the time card view. Timesheets really come into play at the end of a pay period. That's where, like I said, you would see the total hours worked by an employee. So all in all, there's some good points there that we can go through and go through and kind of whatnot with timesheets. But our call today will be focused on the timesheets and kind of going through what you would go through from a timesheet view. All righty, so let me go back into my presentation here. And let me say first off that the timesheet view, when you go into it, you at the very top of the screen, you have an opportunity to filter and manage your view better. The timesheet view is always going to show you based on the date and from that you've selected. Will show you all of the pay periods, all the timesheets that are available between that date range you've selected at the top of the screen. Now here in the red circle box, you'll notice you have some filters in which you can filter out to only look at a specific job, specific employee, and so forth. The one that's up here that really is not going to work for anybody right now is going to be filtered by manager. We don't have the managers completely configured yet in the system, so that would probably be no use of going through and spending time looking for a manager filter. Now, one of the things I'm going to point out during this call is this thing called timesheet status. Right now, timesheet status will allow you to know what exactly the status of that timesheet is. In that, is it an open status like these at the top of the screen are, or have they already been submitted or approved like the two examples down at the bottom of this window? So in saying that, the status is going to save you some time because as a submitter, as an approver, for those that are approvers on the phone call, you really can't do anything until that time has been submitted. So there's no reason to see all the other time on your view. In essence, you may want to see everything, but really to make it easier to see where you're at and what you're kind of probably that checklist for you, you can limit that status or that filter there to limit that view to what you need to work with. So right off the bat, I'm going to introduce those timesheet filters when we go into the actual screen here in a little bit to actually do the demo live so you can actually see how these come into play. So that's one thing I want to show you first off from the timesheet view. Once we go in there, you have the ability to also then submit your time either by a job, individual job, or en masse. Now, I want to keep in mind, and this is something that you will notice on the time card screen. If I go to time cards, I can see all the time cards. I can limit it by job. I can limit it by employee, all that good stuff. Same thing with timesheet. You can limit that timesheet view by a specific job, specific employee, whatever you need. But each timesheet that's in the system is by job. So if you have an employee that worked 5 different jobs, their time is going to appear on 5 different timesheets. So when you go through here, one of the things to keep in mind as a submitter, you can go in and submit a specific employee by job. So you can go in here and this, like the first example here, first bullet point, individually by job. I can go in there and say I want to do all the employees that work this job and want to submit their time. Okay. So like manager A on this phone call could have access to job 1, 2, 3, 4, and manager B could have access to job 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, in this case, an employee may work both jobs, and that's perfectly fine. But manager A would submit the time for that same employee for his job. Manager B would submit that employee's time what they work for his or her job. So you can do it by job, or you can also do it in mass. Now, I'm going to show you, explain how to do it in mass, but I would recommend that everyone, this first payroll, maybe the first 2, 3, 4 payrolls, do it individually. And I do that because individually it makes you go out there and forces you to make sure that you understand the number of hours that are being paid at that job before you just blindly go and say, do them all. So I'm going to go through that. I'll bring that a little more detail once we go into this step here momentarily. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. We're going to focus first off how to change our view, and then secondly, go out and how to do the actual submission process. All right, so I'm going to back out of this slideshow just for a moment, and I'm going to go back into Blueforce. So now here in Blueforce, one of the things to keep in mind is once I've logged in, and if you follow on that document, we'll kind of go through the same steps I'm going to go through here. It's going to ask you to first make sure that your time cards are correct. Now, I'm not going to go through these steps again, because that's what we did last week on that call. But the reviewing the time cards is the first key step. If we're reviewing the time cards and we're going through and doing our steps of reviewing and making sure that the time is correct in the system, when you come to the submitting process, there should be really very little for you to have to worry about. But if you go down to step 7, I believe it's like on the 3rd or 4th page of your document there, this is where we're actually going to take up our conversation in Timesheets. So when you go into Timesheets in Blueforce, I'm going to click on Timesheets. All right, so when I go into Timesheets, one of the things you can actually do is first come into the job selection criteria. It's going to let you know you need to pick your jobs that you want to work with, okay, which is perfectly fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the real examples that are out there. So we can actually, and once again, I'm not going to pick on anybody like I said last week. I'm just going off and point up all of the jobs that are under HP for my area of access so I can see. But one of the things you want to come into Timesheets, the first thing you're going to notice, and don't worry about what necessarily pops up on the screen, the first thing that should be of your concern, and right now just give it a second on my screen, it's going to take a while to pop in because I have a bunch of jobs I have access to. The first thing that should be of your concern is the date from and date to field. Now, the way this date from and date to works, if I just tell it I want to see anything that appeared in that period, 11/22 to 11/23, the way the timesheet view works is it's going to show you the timesheets that appear with that date range in them. So, looking down below, although I picked only the 22nd to 23rd, it's actually going to show me the entire timesheet for the period of 11/14 to 11/27. Okay, the way this view works on the timesheet view, it's always going to show you anything that occurred at that job for that given period. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. It's not that it's in an individual. It's based on that particular date range that I've entered. So let me go ahead and clear my screen here so I can actually go in and clear my screen here. All right, so let me go scroll down here so you can actually see a little bit better what I'm getting at. If I go to the 22nd to 23rd, obviously that's the current period that I'm in. You'll notice that you have a couple columns in this particular view. For example, I have reporting period and pay period. All right. So one of the things that you're going to find with this screen is, and let me go down just a couple more examples. You're going to notice that the reporting period, I'm sorry, my arrow's acting up on me here, so give me 1 second. I'm going to do the highlighter here. So the reporting period is always going to show you that particular week that you're in. The way the timesheets work is every timesheet is built around a week. So standard week out there in Blue Force land is Saturday through Friday. So I would expect that if I'm doing a 2-week pay period, okay, which is what the pay period field responds to or is referring to here, that for a pay period 11/14 through 11/27, I would have at least 2 timesheets for my my time to look at, to review. So week 1 would be the 14th to the 20th, and then week 2 would have the reporting period the 21st to the 27th. Now in both cases, the reason I do not see the first period in here, which is the 14th to the 20th, is because my date selection criteria has only told me to show up timesheets that have these dates in them. So one of the things for everyone on this phone call for this first pay period that we're actually going, this first work week that we're trying to submit, we want to make sure that we have to drop the date from, we want to change that to the 14th, and it'd probably be a good idea just to focus on the timesheets that have been completed through Friday, and then hit a search. And that'll obviously update my reporting period to reflect that particular week, and also update my actual pay period. Okay? So going through here, you'll see I have a bunch of different jobs, and all of them, in all cases here, if you just kind of focus here, I'm going to do the highlighter again, and actually I'm going to change my color here to different colors. The yellow on the screen probably will throw everybody off a little bit. I'm going to do blue, but my highlighter here, if I go in and I'm going to change my arrow color here to blue here momentarily so it won't blend in too much. That first column, that status column, is letting you know what the status of the timesheet is. So as you go through your jobs and your timesheets and you notice that you see timesheets that have status of open, that means that those timesheets need to be submitted. So submitters, that's your key to jump in and take care of those timesheets. Now look at the one down here. It already shows it's been submitted. What that's telling me is that that person who's ever in charge of that particular timesheet has done his or her job, and they are now ready now to work on the current week's time. One thing to keep in mind is once you submit a payroll a timesheet, you have essentially told the system, I've signed off on this payroll. I'm doing those trackers that I'm doing now. I'm doing it manually right now because I'm still keeping those trackers manually on my spreadsheets. What I'm doing, those hours that are reflected on that time, those spreadsheets, do indeed match my time for Blue Force. So once I hit submit, that process basically locks that timesheet. It doesn't allow you to add any more hours to it because you've told the system I've signed off on it. It's good. It also prevents anybody else from accidentally putting time to your review time as well. From there, the submitter is done, and the approver would now step in to approve that particular timesheet. The only catch with the approval is the approvals are actually done. You can do them weekly, but more likely the approvers are typically going to do the approvals at the end of the pay period. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit detail, but first things first, we want to submit that time. So looking at this timesheet, the ones that are open need to be submitted, okay? So kind of walking through here, I don't want to actually go in and actually do any submissions for anybody, but one of the things you'll notice as I go through here, you also have a column, and I want to say hats off to anybody in here that has no open punches in this column. And I can scroll through all these other jobs, but the column here, if it's blank, that's letting you know you have no open punches. One of the things with submitting time is you can submit time with an open punch, but you need to be very cognizant that if there is an open punch showing there, and I'll find one here probably if I scroll down far enough. Go to another couple other pages. If I find an open punch out there, that's just saying that there is a punch. Here's a couple. And once again, I'm not picking on anybody, but let's say San Jose down here at the bottom has 4 open punches. What that is saying is that this job has 4 punches that still are open, meaning that someone had a mispunch, someone had a mismatched fingerprint. In any of those cases, those open punches are not going to get paid. That's why this column is there for you. So whenever you see a black field like this and you have it in red lettering, that is telling you that there's open punches there. So before you come here and try to submit from the timesheet view, what you should do is always click on that open punch link that's there available for you. When you do that, the system will take you back to the time card view and show you what those 4 open punches are. Okay? So in this case, you'll notice they fixed the in and out punches. Everything looks perfectly fine. But all the out punches are saying it needs approval. Approval pending. What that's telling you is at approval pending, if I put my arrow right on top of this black field of the timeout, it's telling me that the employee punched out using IVR from a block caller ID. That basically means that the employee, the same employee on 4 different days, when the punches were fixed by somebody, that's what the orange is telling you. But regardless, that employee's punches are still sitting in a kind of a dormant state because we didn't basically tell the system that those are valid punches. So when you see an open punch, you have to take care of those, and if you want to make sure the employee gets paid correctly. So in this case, since this is approval pending, I'm going to go ahead and do these, and I'll make a note of the San Jose job and work with you if you didn't need them approved. But these 4 approvals are just saying you need to just approve select the time card. So like I said on last week's webinar, if I come up here and click on approve selected time card, all I'm doing is coming up here, checking that, checking these 4 lines. They're all check marks are all there on all 4 lines. Step 1, make sure these are all checked. And then I'm going to come up here and say approve selected time cards. Now by me doing that, the system is automatically going to move them to an approved state, which basically means, and once again, this has nothing to do with the approver role or the approval process. This is just saying that I basically verified these punches, and these punches are good. So I'm going to say approve selected time cards. It's going to ask me, are you sure you want to approve them all? I'm going to say okay. And the system is going to revert all of these from no longer being open. They disappear off the screen. Now when I go back to my timesheet view, and I scroll down, hopefully I can find that same job again. But once I go back to my timesheet view, just give it a second here because I have so many jobs populating, it's going to actually show that I have no open punches on that job. So I think it's on second page, hopefully. So right here, perfect. So at the bottom here, you'll notice that I had a open punch number here. It's no longer open punches. So all the punches are fixed for San Jose in this case. So now I can proceed with the submission process. Now, submitting, and I just want to bring that up because some of these have open punches like this one does. For Houston has 1 there. I'm not sure why I couldn't tell you more than what job it is or anything. Colorado Springs is another one there. These are just something that you can just, like I said, go to the timesheet view. If you see that particular open punch listed there in the black with the red lettering, just click on it. It'll tell you exactly what that open punch is. Fix it, and you're back to square one, back normal. Come back over here, and then you go in and finish off the process of submitting. Alrighty. All right. So let me go back over here and I do have some questions coming through, but I'll answer them here momentarily, so give me 1 second. So once I go from this screen, once I've verified my open punches, one way of doing the submittal process is going and actually, and this is the way I recommend you doing it, is whoever the submitter is on this phone call, you should go to the actual job itself. So I'm at the bottom of the screen here. I'm going to click on San Jose and open up that particular job. And when I go there, I'll notice that the employee, and once again, just give it a second to populate. Once it comes up on my screen, I'm going to see a couple things. I'm going to see that particular job detail. I'm going to show you. It's going to show me who the employee was. It's going to show me all the hours that he or she worked. This job and this just want to be difficult today, I think. There we go. Actually, let me go back to it. And actually, I can just pick. I can pick any job just for that example, just to show you on the screen. And for those that are, while it's pulling up here, so those that are following along, what I'm doing is I just went through step 7 in your document, and then I'm going down now, and step 8 showed me all the kind of how to fix the punch from the time card screen. And I'm going to actually go down now and show you step 9 and number 10 now to actually go on and actually see other stuff about your timesheet. And it's just taking its time, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and back out of here real fast. And I'm going to go log back in over here. I should have canceled my session there. Alrighty, so let me go back to where I left off, timesheets. Let me go pick my jobs again. Alrighty, that's the one I want. Alright, so now I'm going to pick up where I left off from the timesheet view. And I'm going to go back and pick the last week. And once again, so if I pick your job, don't panic. I'm not going to actually submit it. I'm going to go through the motion and show you what you expect. But I'm actually going to, we'll submit it, then I'll come back in and I'll revert it back out of there so we don't have to, won't mess anybody else's time up. So kind of going through here, let's just pick a small one. I'm going to pick on, let's just stick to the one I was doing a little while ago. So this one right here is for Rio Rancho, I guess NM, which is New Mexico, I assume. And this one is open. It seems to be ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And one of the questions I got asked is, you know, what constitutes what you can see on the view, because I can't always see everything on the screen. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail momentarily. But one of the things to focus on when I go into a job, and just the only thing you need to focus on the screen, is up here at the top of the grid, you have a little link that says submit. Okay? If you are an approver on this phone call, and you tried it in the same step, all you're going to see is the word open. You will not see submit. And I think it's critical to make sure everyone understands that the submitter role and the approver role are two different roles. Submitters do the submitting, approvers do the approving, but you don't do both. It's two different roles. And that's for our segregation of duties and our policy we have in place for audit. So kind of what we're going to do is once we come into the timesheet view, you have the ability to verify everybody's time. And at this point, you'll notice that the lunches are here. You'll notice that the regular time is listed here. Okay. If someone needed to see the pay rate, it's listed right there. I'm just going to put a big old circle and dot there so you can actually see it. If you wanted to see the amount the employee would get paid, you can see it there. It's there as well. Total pay, another dot right there. That's kind of where you would see these fields. Okay. This is just an example. I'm just kind of circling them on the screen so you can see where everything is. But the rate, the amount, and the total pay would always be there. This is obviously amount based on what the employee was paid out of Blue Force, based on a net amount. So this is net. This doesn't have any deductions or anything like that figured in. It's just straight hours times dollars. Now the way this works is you always have a column in here that says total hours. So you can always see the total hours the employee worked. So in this case, the employee worked 8 hours every day, total of 40 hours in a week. Okay. Now, I apologize if this is someone's rate that we're not supposed to share, but just as an example I picked. But this example, the way it works, just so you can see it, is that if you are a submitter on the phone call, submitters typically do not have access to seeing basically anything that I'm putting in a square here to the right. If you are a submitter with the pay rate option, then you would see the whole screen as you see here in front of you. Approvers will have access to everything on this screen, so everything you see, unless you've been deemed an approver with no pay rate. And then in case anything involves pay, total dollar amounts will be hidden from your screen. So from an hours perspective, the submitters can go in here and see the hours and can see anything needed as far as the total hours is concerned for that particular employee. Now, to submit, once you go through and see all the employees on this listing, this view is going to show you all the employees that work that particular job. If you forget what job you're trying to approve or submit right now, the job number and name are always listed there, and also at the top left-hand part of the screen. So basically, all the submitter is going to do, and once again, for those whoever on the call is doing Rio Ranch, I believe New Mexico, don't panic. I'm going to revert this back out here in a little bit. But what I can do here is go in to this job, and then just click on Submit. When I click on Submit, the system is going to tell me one or two things. It's going to show me a notification here in purple, letting you know that the approver has been notified. So in this case, the approver for this job, either A, is not set up, or B, the approver does not have an email address in the system, or C, which is probably the option that, or the choice that's probably the reason why this message came up, is because the approver doesn't have the notifications turned on his or her employee record in Blueforce. So the way this works is when someone submits, the approver could get an email letting them know that the time has been submitted on and is ready for their approval. So that's why there's a little message telling me that there's no notification currently set up, which is perfectly fine. But if you see that, don't panic. It's just telling us that the approver doesn't have the alerts turned on. And in that case, if the approver wants the alerts turned on, we can work with them to turn that on their employee record. Now, also what you'll notice is you'll see that you'll have a kind of a verification of your time that was submitted by seeing an option here that says Submitted. It's going to let you know that it's no longer open, it is submitted. The screen also shows you a little blank area that's telling you that you have open time, but in this case it's blank, you have nothing open. Everything has been submitted. Now, what you may notice on my screen, and I have it set up this way for my demo purposes only, is as an approver, approvers would see these two options, approve and reject. So approvers on the phone call, once someone submits their time, you have the ability now to approve that time, or you have the ability to reject that time. Now, the difference is if I approve it, that says that I have signed off, I've reviewed it too, I'm good to go. Both the submitter and approver approve, and now payroll can take over. If it's the end of the pay period, payroll can take over and process payroll for this particular timesheet. Or I can reject it. And reject it is the nice little feature that I was mentioning earlier. If I go in there and submit time by accident and I didn't mean to, for whoever your approver is for your timesheet can go in here and click on reject, and basically that reopens the timesheet and makes it available for you to now to go back and make changes. So keep that in mind. Submitters can make their additions and changes only up until the time the timesheet has been submitted. Once it has been submitted and the approver has not approved it yet, the approver can then go in and reject that timesheet and tell the submitter, go fix your stuff, get it correct, and then go through the process of submitting and approving again. So that is the key thing to keep in mind. It can be rejected by the approver if the approver has not yet approved their timesheet. Now, if we've gone through, submitter didn't catch the mistake, approver didn't catch a mistake, and now we have a approved timesheet, the only people that can really reject timesheets at that point is yours truly and my cohort here at corporate, Tiandra Raber. And also we have another person named Christy Duncan here that works on my team that can assist with that. But we're really the only ones that can go in there and reject the timesheet altogether. So at that point, I would say go put in call our help desk here and get us on the phone so we can get that taken care of. Now, that becomes a timing issue though. So if the approver has already gone through and approved, and we've already told corporate payroll to go and process payroll, all bets are off at that point because we've already processed payroll. It's been pulled from Blueforce into JD Edwards for payment. And at that point, the process of funding cards, pay cards, printing checks, all that good stuff has already occurred or started. We won't be able to go in there and reject it. You'll have to go in there and do a manual timesheet entry to go in there and fix those missed hours. And I'll be talking about manual timesheets and those interim type scenarios next week on our webinar. But that's how you would go in there initially to submit a timesheet. Now, what I'm going to show you here real fast. Let me go back to my my slides real quick. All right, so let me go back to where I left off on my slideshow. So I'm going to go back in here and show you the mass version here a little bit, but individually, you open up the job on the job timesheet, review the total hours, and then come in and click on submit. And that's kind of where we're at. Now, the other way, like I said, in mass, you're using a timesheet filter to do that. So kind of what I was getting at earlier is those approvers that are on the phone call. Well, first off, let's back up a little bit. The submitters that are on the phone call. Okay, if you're a submitter, let me back out here to the main screen again, and I'm going to come back and take care of that Rio Rancho job here momentarily. But the filters at the top of the screen serve a bigger purpose, because this timesheet status by default always shows all. So everyone that comes to timesheet is always going to see every status